What is elder care and how is it different from estate planning? What should you know? If you have aging parents, and let's be honest, many of us do, it's a tough conversation to have. Mom, Dad, how would you handle a significant illness? Are you prepared legally, financially? Because emotionally, it's a really hard situation. The good news is that with proper planning, helping aging parents navigate this tough period can help reduce stress and anxiety on everyone. This week, I conducted an interview with an elder law attorney in Maryland. Stick around and you will see the interview in its entirety and learn why elder law planning is different from estate planning, when it makes sense, and what steps to take. Colin Exelby, certified financial planner here, and I provide financial planning for business owners and their families that just makes sense. I own the virtual advisory practice, Celestial Wealth Management, and help clients all over the country plan for their futures. And you know what? According to data from the Census, the oldest baby boomers will turn 76 next year. And by 2030, all baby boomers will be at least age 65. Now, many of us are helping our aging parents, both health-wise, financial-wise, making those decisions, and planning for aging parents is becoming a larger and larger portion of people's wealth planning. Unfortunately, in the planning profession, we often get approached far too often when it's too late to do ideal planning. And that's why I have a special treat for you. I called in an expert to share her knowledge and help you see the forest through the trees. Welcome, Nicole Hewitt.
Oh, thanks for having me, Colin. Excited to be here today.
Awesome. Well, Nicole is the founding partner of HWK Law in Timonium, Maryland. And Nicole, why don't you just give everyone a little overview of what you do and who you serve?
Great. So I serve families. I work with families to help them with their estate planning, and also with a very specific focus on elder law planning and families that have special children or family members with special needs for special needs planning. And then with all of that is preparing for asset protection in the future and how to minimize taxes through this whole entire process.
Great. So I think a lot of people listening are going to ask, what in the world is elder care planning? I mean, it's different than estate planning, right?
It is different, but it is a type of estate planning. Okay. Elder law planning really has a focus on how do we protect assets and how do we prepare to protect our family as we age and get older.
Okay, and that you're right, that is different than just estate planning. When should someone reach out to their financial or legal advisor to discuss elder care planning? I mean, is there a certain age? Is there certain things? Like, when should you reach out?
Well, it's funny because elder planning can actually start, maybe in your 50s when you're considering a long-term care policy, whether that's 40s or 50s or whatever age. That's kind of your first step. But if you're really looking for elder planning and you want to do some pre-planning when you're past that kind of long-term care age, when you're looking maybe mid-60s to 70, early 70s, if you're still in good health, that's really the point where you want to explore elder law planning and really educate yourself on what the options are.
That's a good point, because we talk a lot with clients when they're in their 50s about long-term care, and it's always an interesting discussion, full of questions, but that's typically when it's most affordable to get those policies or to make a decision that you're going to self-fund and what it means if you do those different kind of things. So it's good to know that, this is much different than having that discussion. This is about more sophisticated stuff. If you have elderly parents, older parents, and you start to see signs either physically or mentally that things are starting to decline, what are the first steps as a child that you should take?
The first step for certain would be to make sure that they have a good financial power of attorney and an advanced medical directive for healthcare. So if they have a power of attorney that was done prior to 2010 in Maryland, really important that they get a new one. October 1st, 2010 is when the law changed. So definitely need the new form, and then a medical directive, making sure that the right decision makers medically are in place, and those individuals are named to help mom, dad, family members financially and medically.
I've definitely seen those powers of attorney from before 2010. So yeah, that's really important. But in addition to that, things change, right? People that you put in these directives may or may not be capable, right?
Correct. They may not be living, they themselves may be sick. So really important to look at them and update them, because as an illness progresses, without these documents, the only other option if somebody cognitively, cannot act for themselves is a full-blown guardianship, which nobody wants. They're time-consuming, they're expensive, you have court oversight at that point. So these two basic documents, if you can help family members get those in place, then any future planning is possible, and can be done with the documents.
Perfect. Okay. I mean, that's a great place to start. And so if you notice that your aging parents are beginning to show these kinds of signs, either mentally or physically, and you want to discuss that with them, do you have any tips for people on the best way to begin the conversation with an aging parent?
This is probably the hardest part, and the biggest thing that I hear from children is my parents don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about finances. They don't want to talk about the legal aspects of things. A lot of times it's all taken care of. And as many people know, all taken care of is not really that. So I suggest small conversations. Don't start with some big in-depth conversation of where are your documents? What do you have? Maybe it's a conversation if you've already done your own documents to say, Mom and Dad, I've done my documents, want to let you know I've done them. It's really great. We've been through the process. And what have you done? Do you maybe have a power of attorney? And if you haven't done your own documents, maybe it's Mom or Dad, I'm thinking about doing these things. Who did you use? What do you recommend? And then that kind of pulls things out with putting the focus on yourself and not on them.
That is great. I mean, obviously you have experience with those conversations and working with people on them, but they're probably not best had over a couple bottles of wine or at Thanksgiving, I assume.
No. Not when the whole family is at the table over Thanksgiving dinner. Not a good time. But that is actually a great time to observe, though. That I find that Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas time, where you haven't been in your parents' presence, for an extended period of time, that's a great time to observe. We get a lot of calls like in January, I was with Mom or Dad over Christmas and they don't really seem to be doing well. So observe during those times. Don't ask the deep questions.
I remember when I was younger and we used to go to Grandma's house for Thanksgiving, that my father would have us in the car and would always have my grandmother drive. And he would sit in the front seat and he would test her to see whether she should still be driving. And I was always thinking in the back seat, could you do this without me in the car? But it's one of those things, like you're saying, observe things is like, you'll notice those things when you're together. So I think that's a really great point. And I'm still here, so it's all good.
You made it.
So one of the things that I think people are really concerned about as they age, they have assets, they've got pensions, they've got things going on, is if somebody becomes significantly ill for a longer period of time, it becomes expensive, would they go broke? What would happen to the surviving spouse after many of the assets are used? What can be done to protect that surviving spouse in that situation?
So I guess the biggest thing I want to kind of hit home today for people watching this is that if you are married and you have not done any sort of long-term care planning, you haven't done any sort of kind of set money aside type of planning to kind of factor in what Medicaid has as a 5-year look back, that there is a way for spouses to protect 100% of the assets with planning if one spouse is sick and the other one is healthy. So don't think that you have to spend everything. And that is what a lot of people think, that we're going to go broke. We're not going to have any money for the healthy spouse. That is true if you don't plan and don't call the right people, but make sure that you're consulting with a financial advisor, with an elder law attorney to plan, because you can protect those assets.
It's great advice. Now, let's talk about a worst case scenario. What if you didn't do any planning whatsoever and all of a sudden a parent needs nursing care? What do? Do you just call local nursing facilities, talk to the nursing administrator and rely on their advice, or is there something else that you should do?
So I would say, number one, never rely on that administrator business office advice, because
Noted.
The goal of any facility is they want to get paid, and they don't care how they get paid, whether they're getting paid through you spending every dime you have, or if they're getting paid because you've applied for medical assistance and now they're getting paid by the state. Doesn't matter. They just want to get paid. Their initial advice is going to be, okay, you have X amount of dollars. You're going to pay for this long. And if you're still here, well, then we'll help you apply for Medicaid when you're down to your last $2,500. Not a good way to plan. If that is the case, you have a loved one that is going into a nursing facility. And let me clarify, really important, we talk nursing level of care. We're talking assisted living, or we're talking, kind of living in like a nice, senior community. This doesn't apply. This is when you're going for skilled nursing care is what you need. First call should be to, again, an elder law expert to discuss what your options are, how do we protect assets, and then how do we potentially get on medical assistance, whether it's immediately now or in the future.
Okay, so even if you haven't done any planning, there's still things that you can do, and you should still reach out to someone. You should just go off the recommendations of the facility.
100%, because, on average, we tell people, depending on the situation, that potentially you can protect in a non-spousal circumstance, an individual case, you can protect somewhere between 30 and 40% of the assets with some planning. So that could be huge. So if you have an individual that maybe only has $100,000 of assets to their name, wouldn't it be worthwhile to do some planning to potentially protect 30,000 of it versus doing no planning and having $2,500 left? So Sure. There's definitely opportunity.
Okay. And through this whole interview, we've been talking about spouses. So what if you're, a wealthy individual or an individual with some means, and you don't have a spouse, you don't have children, it's just you? Like, should you just not do any planning and just go into a facility and see what happens? Like, what do you do in that situation?
Doesn't matter where you fall financially, you should do some planning. Planning may be different depending on your asset level. So if you are an individual and you have $5 million, we're probably not going to be looking at the same planning and sort of Medicaid planning that we're looking for somebody that might have $300,000.
Okay.
The person with $5 million, we may be looking, okay, how can we maybe get some money to a niece or nephew or a child, or maybe a charity in the future? How can we protect some money for that? And then private pay, my cost of care also. But then somebody that might have that $300,000, it might be more critical of, okay, how do we protect some serious money here? Because I don't want to get down to $2,500 and not have any money to pay for those extras that Medicaid doesn't cover. Prime example that I have is that, if you need some dental work, a Medicaid solution for a lot of things is pull the tooth, not say, get a bridge or a crown or get some dental work that you need. So if you have that money set aside and you've done some planning, you have money for those kind of extras that you may need to make sure that you actually have adequate care, because really Medicaid provides just basic care.
Right. So, that's an important point of this. It's not just protecting assets. It's about the quality of care that you want to have during that time. I wanted to make sure I heard you right. You had said if you need dental care and it becomes a more expensive option, rather than getting that option, my tooth gets pulled.
Correct.
Does not sound fun.
It's the least expensive means to, achieve that health care.
Gotcha. So even if you're not trying to protect assets for a family or for yourself, it makes sense to be exploring planning so that you can have the best care that you can afford during that time.
Correct.
Great. Well, this was a lot of information packed into a short period. This is a huge subject and a growing part of financial planning. I just want to say thank you for joining me today. If people want to get more information about you, your firm, and elder care, where should they go?
You can go to our website at hwklawgroup.com, or our phone number is 410-825-2255. Call us with any questions. We do consultations. Really want to make sure that people are educated and feel comfortable with their planning.
Well, thanks again, Nicole, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So let me know what you think. Are you already done with your elder care planning? Let me know in the comments section. Do you have thoughts or comments on how to optimally do it? Let me know, put those in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like. And of course,
make sure you smash that subscribe button.
Thank you, Nicole, and hit that little bell so you know whenever I release a new financial planning video. Get clear, be clear.